What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Tag Team, the Pokemon trading card game's premier podcasting duo. My name is Riley Hulbert, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mr. JW Kriewall. JW, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well, Riley. Just enjoying the lovely weather here in New Jersey.
Yes. Yeah, finally, spring has sprung, I feel like.
It was gorgeous today. I was over in Hoboken for work, and that's right across from New York City. So I was like, you know what? I need to go outside. I really need to enjoy this 80-degree weather, and took my lunch break, walked around. They have a little park out there, and dude, it was packed. All the people with dogs were on the park. All the people, trying to catch some sun were out sunbathing.
That's nice.
A lot of runners. I mean, it was just a
80
very
degrees
active.
Is really nice too. That's like a really great temperature.
That's crazy.
It's a little bit cooler here, I guess, as you might expect. It was gorgeous last week. This week it's really windy. There was actually like a severe weather warning last night for wind. But I'm sure it's gonna bounce back, soon enough. So all good there. It was gorgeous though. We did our tennis club kickoff last week, and it was like the perfect day. It was like one of those white people be like, I needed this type of thing. Like it was like that, Finally breaking through the cold and everything. So good. So good.
Man, that's great. Yeah, that's good to hear.
What have you been up to over the last few weeks, man?
Well, it was, let's see, what I'm trying to think. We didn't hit last week, so I'm trying to think what happened in the last couple of weeks. Well, had some visitors over the weekend. My brother came into town, and so that was nice to have them here. Brother and his wife came in, so we had a chance to hit New York City and hit some of the local places here in Jersey. So that was pretty fun. I mean, always good to see them. And beyond that, let's see, we're getting ready for my youngest daughter's first birthday. That's coming up in a couple weeks. So that's on the horizon here. So we're already starting to think about a third, which is we're trying to plan it out. Very. We have our 1 year plan now. We're kind of thinking a year ahead and what that might entail. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So maybe a third child.
There you go.
Maybe a boy, and
exciting
we'll
stuff.
Maybe name it Riley. Who knows?
Or Cletus, perhaps.
Cletus could be Cletus. Absolutely.
Cletus Kriewall. I mean, it just rolls off the tongue so easy.
It sure does.
I was just talking this past weekend about. You ever think about how there's some names you can't ever imagine on a baby or a child, but then there's other names that you can't ever imagine on an adult.
Yep. Okay. Uh-huh.
So you got to be really careful with the names is all I'm saying. You got to be really careful with the names.
You absolutely do. Yeah. What's the one
Riley,
name?
of course, all-timer, versatile.
What's the one name that kind of jumps out to you in this thought experiment?
Well, I think when I think of names that I could never imagine on a baby.
I think actually one that one that comes to mind. Okay, Eustace. No, I was gonna say because there's one that just came to me right now where I'm I
Miriam?
really I know a lot of this person's name, but I can't really imagine.
Okay.
But I've never really met any babies that are named this, and that name is Ryan.
Ryan. Yeah, Ryan's
I've never really met a lot of. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I've met a baby named Ryan.
Yeah,
but I know a lot of teenagers and adults that are named Ryan, right?
Yeah.
So to me,
you
that's
probably just call him Little Rye or something.
Little Rye, yeah, or the name changes, right? They evolve. Maybe they start out as a
RJ.
Yeah, and then they evolve into
the
into the Ryan. The Ryan is the final form. I think that's probably how it works.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Or people can go by their middle names, when they're younger, or maybe they switch to their middle name at one point and just keep it. You see that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So
who's an example of that? There's somebody I know like that.
Well,
there's plenty
my girlfriend
of people I know
Jill's
like that.
parents were just here this past weekend visiting, and that was lovely. But her father goes by his middle name, actually.
Well,
and it's like actually still legally has his first name, but on all his, he goes by his middle name everywhere, and it's like on all his documents except for like his social security,
and like passport. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the things that you're legally required to still have your like legal name on.
So is he embarrassed about his first name?
I think he was as a kid, based on the story that we told.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, it just makes you think, man. Just makes you think. Names are crazy things. It's also, you got the first middle name synergy. In my opinion, that's really key too. It has to be a name that you could say the whole name out loud, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love a good name like that, for sure.
For sure. Well.
Yep, that's really important.
Yeah, so just makes you think. Well, things have been good over here too. We just had some visitors this past weekend and bounced around a lot for work, which has been fun but exhausting. We were in Chicago last week, the weekend before last. That was fun. Just a lot going on. Yeah, I'm excited to just kind of settle down a little bit, but I don't know when that's going to happen. I'll let you know when it does, though.
I mean, it seems like for me, I don't know if this is the case with you, is like I pretty much have my weekends planned out for the next 2 months. Right?
I actually went through this exact exercise not more than a handful of days ago, and it's like the next 2 full months are basically planned out, except for one weekend, pretty much. So and some are more thoroughly planned than others, right? Like some is like, okay, well, this person's in town and we're gonna do stuff, but that doesn't mean like down to the minute. Whereas other things are like, okay, well, I'm leaving, or like I'm going to NAIC for 5 days. So let's
go. I'm really looking forward to NAIC. I hope the group will back me on going, like having a nice dinner on Wednesday night. And then
I'm a foodie, dude. I'm always down for it.
Okay, good. All right. So I just don't know, because we kind of have
I feel
a
like if anything,
card.
that's not in character for you to go have a really nice meal.
What? For me? What are you talking
save
about?
the couple bucks.
Okay, well, in my old age, I'm getting a little bit more
appreciate food more.
Well, no, I like a good meal, and I think what impressed me last NAIC, because I had never been to New Orleans, so that they have a very extensive food culture there.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of, Southern cooking, which generally I would say trends toward, a very kind of funneled subset of foods, right? A lot of fried foods, a lot of, chicken and, home style.
It's like
food,
all
chicken,
Cajun
mashed
stuff
potatoes.
in Louisiana.
Well, they also have kind of the Southern. I feel like there's a lot of overlap there. Jambalaya.
I've never been to New Orleans, I don't think.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't think so, because I didn't go last year.
I think you'll be impressed. I was. Certainly I didn't know what to expect, I guess, coming in, and it really surprised me. So I had a few meals out on the town, and they were both really good. And so, hopefully we can go do something a little more elevated, I suppose, than just kind of,
sure.
Andrew really liked the, what was it called? Like Mama's or something. I'm forgetting the name, but
I don't know.
But we ate there. We ate at the home style, po' boy, fried chicken place like 3 or 4 times.
Well, that sounds good too.
It's good. It's good. Just not 3 or 4 times good, right?
Sure. So
sure.
We'll have to get his take on it when he's back.
Yeah, this is actually the ideal episode to kind of talk about this, because I know if I said this with him on, he would be outraged. But anyway.
I'm just picturing like, oh well, it's so authentic, and like the stuff you get in like the nice restaurants like isn't isn't the real like New Orleans experience. It's Mama's really captures the essence of the city.
I think he would have a good argument, but I think what works against him is that Andrew is a creature of habit. So, the thing that we always rag on him at Pokemon tournaments is like, we'll go out to eat, and it's always like, he'll suggest the Mexican place. It's like, okay, like we'll go to the Mexican place, and it's like that to him is kind of the comfort, and he knows what he's going to get, right? And I think it's the same here at this restaurant. He like tried it and was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like, they have enough options, and I liked what they presented to me the first time, and so I'm just going to keep going back. And so I think, to that extent, like he's very much a creature of habit, somebody who likes to keep that routine. Sure. And if he finds something that he likes, he's going to go back to it.
I mean, I can empathize with that. I totally can.
Yeah. So,
well, I'm also pleased to announce, so I mentioned that I've been gone for work a couple of weeks, and I have exciting news, and that's we're finally ready to launch the tag team sleeve lineup. That's right. We've been hard at work working with our overseas partners to launch the tag team sleeve lineup. Now, these things, $11.99, and they are so excellent, smooth like butter.
You get, yep, 151 sleeves in a package.
That's right.
More than any competitor.
Any competitor on the market. And that's minimum, right? So all of our QC will guarantee minimum, but if a package happens to have more, those are on the house. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you could get 152, 153, but never 150. Okay. Never 150. And hey, 151, that's the same number of Pokemon as Generation 1. So there's a little bit of intentionality there too in our design space. And if you buy 2 packs, that's enough for 5 Pokemon decks. So plus a few extra to sleeve up your favorite holographic or promo cards that you get at a tournament. So really, this is like the best value on the market.
Yeah, I think so. And all the proceeds you forgot to mention are going to go to the local homeless dog shelter. So, I mean, you'd be doing a big favor to the dogs in the greater Newark, New Jersey area, in Madison, Wisconsin area. Yep. That's right.
So and without this money, who knows? Who knows?
So true. Yeah, well said. So, keep a lookout for the new sleeve line. And if you couldn't tell that we weren't joking, there have been some, like, this does seem to be the latest trend, right? We had another sleeve lineup announced, top cut sleeves in time for NAIC. I think there's some controversy surrounding, the some of the promoters of the sleeve lineup. But then this follows with the FCBC sleeves that have been released. I actually really, personally, I really like FCBC. I think they kind of give Dragon Shield a run for their money in terms of the quality and the value there. I saw that Ultra Pro is releasing another type of sleeve. I don't know if you've seen this.
Oh, I didn't see that. Hold on.
They are releasing.
I'm taken to the skies right now.
Yeah, Ultra exactly. Pro. I think you should. They're releasing a new sleeve variety.
Interesting.
So that seems to be the thing. I don't know what happened. Trump got elected, and all these new sleeve.
Well, it's interesting too because all these, these are all probably coming out of the same factory in China, right? Which has got to be the worst country to start a new business in, like all things considered right now. But and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I have noticed this. So I have a pack of like dual specs on my desk right now. I tried these out for Baltimore this past year and I actually really liked them. I liked the dual specs.
Sure.
To me, dual specs was like the first of like that, like the new wave of like sleeve brands. And Jesse shared with me like shuffling some of his FCBC decks, and they felt kind of similar to me to the dual specs. They had kind of similar packaging too. And I've noticed that with the top cut sleeves too, is they look pretty similar to these. So I actually think they just might all be coming from the same place, to be honest.
There's an illusion of choice, is what you're saying.
They're like at a similar price point with similar packaging. Like, they're probably coming out. To be honest, they're probably coming out the same pipe. That's my like, not sponsored, no affiliation with any of this. Like, I don't know.
That's really
not a statement of like legal truth. It's just what it looks like to me.
I hadn't considered, but now that you say it, it tracks.
So like, I don't know, maybe it's just too easy to get in this business, and it's like it makes it tempting to be like, how do you get into this business?
Really makes you think. Yeah, makes you think.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, like, if you're interested in a new sleeve brand, but you don't want to support that controversial figure over at Top Cut Sleeves, there's other alternatives that'll probably get you a pretty similar product.
Well, the thing with sleeves is like there's a pretty wide bell curve for me for acceptability. Like there's a wide range of sleeves that I feel comfortable using on my cards. Right, in terms of protection, I've never noticed any difference amongst any sleeve that I've tried, and I haven't tried too many, to be fair, because I like what I like. But all have really protected the cards really well. It's just kind of about the feel and the shuffle. So
yeah, I agree.
So anyway, yeah, that seems to be the new hotness. So I can't wait to see what other sleeve brands arise in this kind of.
I can't wait for what's next, baby.
This kind of fake sphere, right? But no matter.
Yeah,
no matter.
My take has been I feel like Dragon Shields, in my experience, again, not sponsored, Andrew's not here either. Dragon Shield, in my experience, has been the most durable consistently, but also like I've never found that to really matter a lot in the context of a tournament. Like maybe if I was like collecting the cards and like trying to sleeve them up, that would matter more to me. So to me, it's more the feel. I agree, and just like the general like quality, like not having creases on the back, stuff like that.
Sure.
Dragon Shield did have a rough patch for a while. I haven't experienced any issues more recently, but I know other people have or have alleged to. I have like these new wave sleeves, I guess is what I would call them. Like I have enjoyed. They feel pretty smooth, which I've enjoyed about them, which has been a selling point to me and why I enjoyed the dual specs when I tried those out in Baltimore. And to me, like the FCBC felt about the same that my dual specs felt. And I imagine these Top Cut ones are probably pretty similar because they're probably coming out the same pipe. So like, I don't know what it is about them. They feel nice.
Right? There's also endgame sleeves that are out there.
Okay. Do they have the same packaging?
Roughly, yeah, like cardboard with kind of a cutout on the front.
Do they have? Yeah, the window. I'm telling you, the window is
the window. The window is really important.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, dude, this goes all the way to the top.
Okay, we need to go deeper on this. This sounds like something we need to get.
This would be like great, like YouTube video.
Yeah, we need to call up all the sleeve companies to try to get an interview with them, and then see where they get, who's their source, and then if we can trace the sources back to the same sweatshop in China.
I mean, that's just how business is. Like, that's true for the clothing companies. It's no knock. It's just, but also they're all $11 too. Like, it's just so funny. Like, I don't know. Again, like, no statement of like, don't sue me or whatever. But like, this is just. It seems like almost cut and dry to me.
Yeah, sure does. So. Interesting stuff. Well, we have.
I want to get my connections on this, though.
Yes, absolutely do. I'll be curious to hear your findings as they come out. So, very interesting stuff. We got a full episode today. 20 minutes in already, but we got some stuff to cover. I mean, we've been gone a couple weeks, so a lot of things have happened in the competitive Pokemon TCG space. As we are wrapping up the season, we have just a few more months. Obviously, NAIC is kind of the last major tournament for the player base, most of the player base, and that's coming up here in about a month and a half, which is crazy to think about the season ending already, but that's kind of where we are. So a couple of major tournaments happened in the last 2 weeks. We, of course, have the regional, the Monterey regional, and then also the Master Ball League tournament in Malaysia. I don't want to exclude that. We could give a brief look at that, although a lot of lists missing for that tournament. But then last week, we had the special event in Spain, in Sevilla. So interesting thing to note about both Monterey and Sevilla, and going back to the regional in Atlanta, which was the week prior, all won by Gardevoir. And, you know, and also more interesting to note, the last 2 regionals, Monterey and Sevilla, same exact list, won those tournaments. So, you know, kind of initial thoughts there on what you're seeing with the dominance from Guardy in these major tournaments recently, Riley.
Yeah, a couple thoughts from me. First, I'm not totally surprised, and I know we were a little negative on Gardevoir at the start of the format, but there's always like something in my gut is like, could someone make Gardevoir work? And my hunch was always on the secret box, and so I was really vindicated, I think, to see that come through. And the main reason I say that is Gardevoir didn't actually lose a lot in terms of the deck's function. It kept all of its main attackers, and it kept Gardevoir EX, and it kept Monkey Dory, and it gained Lily's Clefairy as well, which is tremendously strong. So Gardevoir had all the pieces, in my opinion, that it needed to succeed. We just needed to rethink the way the deck was being approached from a build perspective, because we no longer could rely on the Kirlia heavy draw engine. And I think once people realized that and recognized that, the success of Gardevoir was almost a foregone conclusion. So Henry, of course, taking a different approach with that and Zorua line. Also, shout out Henry, like old school with the 1-2 evolution line.
Yes.
It was so fun. I remember when I was the first day of Atlanta, I was just trying to like get his list from the stream game, and I was like
1-2. That
almost confused.
Right.
I was almost confused because the casters were talking about how he like in one of the games they're talking about how he like prized his 1 Zorua, but I definitely saw him trade away Zoroark at one point, and I'm like, well, hold on a second, like people don't do that in 2025, but Henry is bold and brave. It does that kind of thing. And you know, it is easier to get the Zorua onto the board than the Zoroark into your hand, so whatever. The Sevilla and the Monterey list were a little more streamlined in comparison, like not playing that 1-2 Zoroark line, instead just have that really heavy Monkey Dory count, and really heavy supporter lineup. I think that's also fine. I think one other thing that kind of ties this all together, in my opinion, is the decks that are seeing success more often than not are playing very heavy draw engines. Like the decks that are getting to finals of these tournaments are playing very heavy draw engines.
Yeah.
And so, for example, in Sevilla, both the Gardevoir that won and the Dragapult that got second played 4 Research and 4 Iono, and the Dragapult that got second took that like way farther than that, even in terms of supporter lineup. But I think the influence of Badoo on the format is like really
it's being felt right now
for context here, both because I think Gardevoir and Dragapult are good at like playing the Badoo game in kind of their own ways. Like Gardevoir with the Monkey Dory allows it to really easily win Badoo wars if you can get that Monkey Dory out, because you can move your Badoo damage back over. And then Dragapult, of course, has that draw engine that it can sit behind and accumulate cards while under Badoo and also using Badoo itself. So yeah, I think all that context like comes together and it gives you that perspective of what we're looking at here. And it makes a lot of sense. In my opinion, it makes a lot of sense that Gardevoir is doing well once people were able to crack the code of how to get it to work and get it running. And I think that was the hardest part of getting Guardian to be successful in this format, was just figuring out like, okay, how do I get these dang things out in the absence of Kirlia?
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense, right? Because without that draw engine, you have to, I mean, the without the Curlia, refinement ability, you have to find other ways, more sustainable ways to draw under item lock, and that's going to be obviously with the increased supporter counts there. So yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. Gardevoir, I think, is surprising to me generally. I thought the losses for the deck were not, game ending or deck ending for Gardevoir, but I certainly didn't see Gardevoir as this kind of tier 1 or arguably, maybe not even arguably, S tier deck. I figured it'd probably slot into that low tier 1, high tier 2 range, but to kind of be far and away one of, if not the best deck in the format, was certainly a shock.
You talk about those losses. Like, what do you see Guardy having lost, or are you just thinking of Curlia?
I mean, I feel like the Curlia is significant, extremely significant.
It is significant, but you said losses, so I wasn't sure if you were thinking of like other things, like Cresselia was lost.
Yeah, right. Cresselia is kind of like soft, right? Because you're seeing that in response to Dragapult. I do see that as an important card, or was an important card, at least contextually, for whatever, a month ago, right before this format, when we were kind of thinking that potentially Dragapult could be, at least from the Japanese results, could be a major player.
Yeah, although counterpoint, like the addition of Clefairy was probably more influential to the Dragapult matchup than Cresselia ever was.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
So. No, I agree. Like, I'm not saying that the loss of Curlia wasn't substantial, particularly when you're looking at those older builds, like pre-rotation builds of Gardevoir. You're playing like Arvins and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I was always kind of underwhelmed by Arvin as a card, and I think especially with the addition of Badoo into the format, like Arvin is not a very good supporter under Badoo lock.
Yeah,
it's not to say Arvin's a bad card now. Like, there are decks that can use it, but it's basically a blank card if you're under Badoo.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's certainly, when you think about deck building in this format, I mean, I do want to highlight the second place list out of Sevilla, piloted by Pedro here. Just incredible supporter lineup, right? You have your 4 boss, 4 research, 4 Iono, 4 Brock scouting. Brock scouting has been a bit of a it has been perceived, I think, to be a bit of a weak card in the format, but obviously, if it gets a result like a second place at a major tournament, it's kind of hard to argue, and you certainly see the logic behind it. But Brock Scouting was certainly a card that I didn't have very high hopes of. Like, it's a good card, but I didn't think it would maybe outpace something like an Arvin, right? For kind of a more explosive turn 1. And so, yeah, I mean, you're just looking at this list and it's like, wow, very supporter heavy, very much adapted to have an edge against fellow Badoo decks. It's pretty fascinating where we've gotten in this format in terms of deck building.
Yeah, and I feel like every single regional stream, or like the 2, I guess, with Atlanta and Sevilla, have very quickly the finals matches for both of those devolved into the Badoo Wars.
Yeah.
So those edges matter, right? Like, those edges really do matter, especially if people are, trying to copy the lists and the strategies that are doing well. They see that in Atlanta, the Badoo War defined that finals. They're going to start going for the Badoo War themselves and having the edge there with cards like Brock Scouting to consistently get your Tricloaks in play, which is like the main potential for Dragapult to get stunted, is if they can't get the Tricloaks out under Badoo.
Yep.
Then that gives you like that incremental edge.
Yep, 100%.
So
100%.
Is Pedro's list perfect? Is it like the best list ever? I don't know. Like, maybe it gets usurped, but I think it's a savvy thought process to go down this logical path.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, something that we've talked about in deck building is like trying to find an essence of a deck. And I think for this format, again, since it's so warped around Badoo, you really have to take that into account. It's the same reason that we're seeing higher supporter counts in the other top tier decks like. Yeah, well, really, I mean, I can think of like, Gardevoir playing the 4/4 Iono research. You can think of the Goldango lists that are trending more toward playing higher supporter counts. Like I'm seeing 4 Cypher Maniac in a lot of those lists. You can think about the Raging Bolt decks, right, that are playing 1, 2, maybe even 3 Crispin to supplement that energy acceleration. I think it's a really, really interesting format in the sense that you have a lot of these decks really warping their decks around. A lot of these players, I should say, warping their decks around Badoo.
Yeah, and you'll see this discourse anytime an item lock card becomes remotely relevant. Of like, should we ban Badoo? Should we ban Badoo? Is it too broken? I don't actually really think it's too broken. I think whenever cards like this come out, it's up to the players to actually. It almost reminds me of like Trashlands, when Trashlands completely like wiped out the Seattle Regional that year, and it was a super powerful card, completely like format defining and influencing. But also, you had to approach the way you played the game a little bit differently too, and I think that's fun and interesting and kind of healthy as well when we're not just trying to turbo out as quickly as possible every single game.
Yeah. Totally. So, maybe we're in for a bit of a small, a slower format. I mean, that certainly seems to be the case. But if everyone builds their deck to be slower, right, does that give an edge to these more turbo decks? I don't know.
Well, we haven't really seen that materialize yet. So.
Yeah, but not everyone, right? Like, not everyone has adopted this super thick supporter lineup. Right. So like as we trend there, right, because I imagine players will start to pick up this, this style of deck building, both in the Gardevoir and Dragapult lists. And as we get closer to, the general populace picking up the heavier supporter lineup, does that make the speedier decks better? Maybe not. Like maybe Badoo is, just this, kind of a point of no return, right? It's just kind of a brick wall. It's going to slow everything down anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you play a really fast deck in response. But that is kind of something interesting. Like I'm seeing here in this meta, and you can disagree or concur, but the big decks being, of course, Gardevoir. That to me feels like the top dog, followed very closely by Dragapult, and then to round out like a top 3, I think you have to include Goldango in there. Like that to me feels like kind of the big 3 of this format, but I would say Dragapult and Gardevoir are pretty far and away the best decks right now.
Yeah, to me it's like Goldango is in a kind of distant third. It's just not turning all the way over. You're seeing it get no top 8s in Atlanta. Okay, maybe nobody played Goldango in Atlanta. In Monterey, a lot of good players did play the Goldango Dragapult variant, which I knew. I'm just kidding. But I was always a fan of it for the meme part of it. And now it's just actually seems like it's one of the better ways to play Goldango. Quite a few players did play it. And there were 2 in the top 8, 1 in the top 4. Caleb got 4th and Grant got 5th, but still weren't able to like all the way turn it over. No Goldango showing in Sevilla top 8 as well. So I think Goldango's good for sure, and it can definitely dominate a game. But yeah, it just feels like Gardevoir and Dragapult are far ahead.
Yeah,
to me, it feels like that. And then the other kind of like more niche contenders or Terrabox feels like it's kind of fallen off, but is still a conversation piece in my mind. We got the Raging Bolts, of course, that just aggressive strategy as always. And this Joltik Box has been popping up here and there. And I think it's actually had a decent showing, probably relative to representation.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Joltik Box, because I think that's been a deck on the rise for a lot of players in the weeks leading up to Milwaukee. I think players are trying to find something fresh, trying to find something a little bit new and different. And by and large, I think the Joltik Box offers that. So let's take a look here. I'm looking at the labs.limitless page, which is a really nice site for aggregation of tournament results. And Robin and the team have done a really great job here. It shows all the decks and then their records and win percentages. And you come down here to the Joltik Box deck, and it has, really no other deck is kind of sniffing this 57% win percentage that it has. Maybe you have the Straight Dragapult, but you also have to figure that the Straight Dragapult, by and large, is piloted by better players. So, this Joltik Box deck is certainly punching above its weight for what it is, right? And if we come into a list, we'll just take the highest performing list here from Thomas Abbott out of Sevilla. You have the Miraidon going to go fetch out your Iron Hands or your Pikachu, depending on the matchup, and then a Joltik with the Jolting Charge. It allows you to search up to 2 basic Grass and Lightning Energy and attach them to your Pokemon. So it's a really simplistic deck, right? You're fetching out whatever attacker you deem necessary for that matchup, and then the energy accelerator, and then go ahead and accelerate your energies and let your opponent do their thing, and then come in and kind of control the game beyond that with whatever attackers you can get going. You supplement that with Crispin, you supplement that with Boss's Orders to bring up what you need at any given time, and it's just a very low to the ground deck that is going to work, more likely to work than your opponent's deck. And that was always a draw with Miraidon.
Yeah, and it's almost like the final form of being low to the ground in a way. All it takes, assuming you don't get item locked first, all it takes is one Arven, basically, and you're almost guaranteed to get that Jolting Charge off. Mm-hmm. You get like a Nest Ball for your Miraidon and a rescue board, and you're pretty much set. Mm-hmm. Yep. Or if you need to get like a Latios or something to retreat out of the active. And from there, you just Jolting Charge, and your board is ready to go. To me, it's like a classic Miraidon style deck in the sense that it is got the 2 options, right? It can either go more aggressive with like big 2 prize knockouts, or it can go for the Iron Hands approach. Yeah, it's a very different way of achieving that goal, like not using the turbo generators, squawkabilly type stuff. But fundamentally, it's like following that same pathway, right? Mm-hmm. Of you pick your attacker and you go in with it.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think the only way that this deck works is if the format is slow enough, and that's what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. The big decks are using are using Badoo, and they are trying to grind the game down to a halt. But that's where this deck can really shine, because it can take advantage on its second turn, 2 prize, and close the game off with another 2 prize knockout, right? Or, if your opponent is playing 2 prizers themselves, well, you go in with either the Pikachu or the Miraidon. Like, you have all these options to just trade 2/2/2, or to go aggressive on your opponent's evolving basics and stage 1s, and really punish that play, right, if they try to hide behind a Badoo of their own. So I think that this deck is like, man, where did this deck come from? I think it's a result of the format being slow enough that it can flourish.
Yeah, right, exactly. Because when I think of this deck in comparison to, the previous iterations of Miraidon, for example, you're not getting that like turn 1 Iron Hands. You can't. You literally can't. So as much as I'm sure they would love to, you can't. So you need to be able to afford that extra turn, even in evolving matchups. And you see that reflected even in the matchups, like the Dragapult Dusknoir. These decks aren't they aren't like explosively attacking with Dragapults on turn 2.
Yeah, well, and you're arguably getting a lot slower even too, right? Like you're not playing in the Dragapult decks Rare Candy. You're not playing, by and large the Sparkling Crystal, right? You're not playing
exactly,
and then you're trending more towards supporters, right? To get out
exactly my point.
Yeah.
And so you see the win rate, again, checking on Limitless Labs, 72% across the entire weekend, day 1 and day 2, with Joltik Box into Dragapult Dusknoir. Gardevoir matchup across the entire weekend, 59%. And just day 2, it was 73% and 75% for those two decks. Ironically, the slower Dragapult seems like that matchup is not as favorable for the Joltik Box. I don't know if that's just like the localized performance of that.
Sure. I mean, you only have in Sevilla.
This isn't like mass. This isn't like the kind of mass data aggregation. So like things can be skewed quickly. But I think it's just worth noting, like it's showing up strong against these evolving decks, and even these, these 2-prize decks like Raging Bolt really struggles to deal with Pikachu, for example.
Yep.
And compared to other variants of Miraidon, you actually could just build up Pikachu boards. That's like your only 2-prizer in play after a certain point.
Yep.
Like you might have the Miraidon, but then you could just leave the Pikachu. You just put a ton of energy onto it with the Joltik and keep attacking with it.
Yep.
It's so yeah. I think I agree with your assessment. It slotted in well into the particular metagame we're in. We have yet to see that deck either break into the very top echelons, but I think it's poised. It's an interesting piece of the conversation, and I think it could. Yeah. I think it could. Yeah. And here's the thing: the very best deck in the format isn't the deck that wins every single tournament, right? So, that's not me saying Gardevoir's not the best deck.
That's a bold statement, though, Riley. That's a bold statement.
That's not a bold statement. There are some crazy decks that win tournaments, and I don't think Joltik Box is nearly as crazy as some other decks that have won tournaments in the storied history of Pokemon cards.
For sure.
Even though at first glance it might look crazy.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, do you think that that this will be a choice for like a top choice for players heading into Milwaukee? Like, I'm kind of looking at these results, and I think there are a lot of players out there that are somewhat sick of the Gardevoir and to maybe a lesser extent the Dragapult domination over the last, year or so, even more so for Gardevoir, and are looking for something fresh and something new, right? They don't necessarily want to play Raging Bolt. They're not necessarily into a Noctowl deck. Goldango doesn't necessarily excite them. Do you think Joltik Box is going to see I almost view it like I could really see this deck being a top 3 play in Milwaukee, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. Where you kind of see
top
Joltik
3
Box
seems maybe a little ambitious.
Okay.
I don't know though. So I'm looking at the day 1 graphics for Sevilla right now.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like shocking that Raging Bolt was second place. People just.
They will not let that deck
Raging Bolt keeps staying in like the top 2 or 3, and frankly, it's annoying me. Like I've never liked this deck, and it's always the most popular deck in the room somehow. But you have Dragapult like as a dominant, like most popular deck, then Raging Bolt, then Gardevoir, then Goldango. So could Miraidon be in the top 3? I feel like Gardevoir and Dragapult probably still will be 2 of the top 3.
Number 2.
So you're basically saying, do you think, and I think it'll probably, Archaludon and Ogerpon Box were the next 2 in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think Joltik Box will exceed those. So then it's a question of, will it exceed Goldango and Raging Bolt? And I think it will probably be similar to Goldango, but still somehow Raging Bolt will be like the second or third most popular deck.
I think I can get behind that assessment. So you're saying certainly a top 5 deck, though.
Well, here's the thing, too. The Raging Bolt deck, they all have 4 golden vessels. They all have 4 golden Raging Bolts. They need to see this thing through.
Yeah, they're committed
to the end.
They're in it for the long haul. That's sure.
That's right. But I think top 5 is like totally reasonable for this. It was 7th most played deck at Sevilla, but you look at the turnover the deck had, the performance it had in day 2, and I think going into Sevilla, people were thinking, okay, well, this is like a little bit of a meme. Like Tyler Matthews got 7th with it. That's funny. Like, but seeing kind of the mass success that it had, obviously didn't win the tournament, but it had very, very good success on the whole.
Yeah, good showing. Good showing. Just generally for.
So I think people will now,
deck,
who maybe were like interested in the deck, will now have those gears turning and will actually be willing to play it. Whereas if Milwaukee was right after Monterey, I feel like we'd see something kind of similar that we did in Sevilla, where it was on the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah, interesting. Also,
because here's the thing, JW, people don't actually want to be groundbreakers. They want to do something that they know will work. They want other people to break the ground for them.
Nah, dude, I don't know if that's true. So they want other people to break the ground, but then they want to change like 1 or 2 cards.
They want other people to break the ground for them, and then they want to, exactly. They want to change the 3 cards, make it their brew, and prove why their brew is the superior way to do it. So,
with how fast metagames can shift, I really don't see that as a bad strategy. I mean, you literally have like again the Gardevoir list that won Sevilla was a copy of the Gardevoir list that won the tournament prior. Like, we're just seeing.
I actually think the problem is trying to make your own brew out of it. I think you just
take the best list. Just take the best list, rip it card for card, and learn how to play that thing. Because probably the hours, the manpower, the brain power that went into making that deck is probably way higher than you can achieve on your own. I'm totally with you.
In a week, yeah.
Net decking is like net decking. I used to be a little bit more against it, but I think in the context of the current game, where we have a lot of this data available to us, we have a lot of online tournament data available to us. The metagame seems to shift, much faster than I can remember, and you have, I don't know, 8 to 10 decks that you could, reasonably see over the course of a tournament. Like, I see no problem with just ripping a list that did well, and I would recommend that to people who are looking to play a relatively unknown deck like Joltik.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Makes you think. Makes you think for sure.
Does make you think.
So, I have one other like deck-based question, and then I would like to get your take for what you would bring to Milwaukee, and I'll give my personal opinion as well.
Sure.
N is a deck that people were excited about, I think, when it was first announced, with that Zoroark, of course, a very exciting card. Then it feels like it was its reception was pretty poor on release. Mm-hmm. Just people didn't think it had the sauce. We did see a Zoroark in top 4 here at Sevilla with Harvey Scheinman and his N Zoroark deck. Pretty straightforward, I think, build of the deck. Yeah. Has all the things you'd kind of expect. Do you think N Zoroark is actually real? Do you think it was, he hit a bunch of Guardies and like bodied them? Do you think?
Well, from his statement on the deck, it's obviously going to have a better than 50% win rate against Gardevoir, and it's also going to do pretty well against Dragapult. So, if that's kind of the true matchup percentages, right, or the true nature of the matchups, then would I be surprised that he had a deep run? Absolutely not, right? If you're looking at those two as being kind of your good matchups, then I think there's no reason to believe that you wouldn't have a strong showing over the course of a tournament. Now, is this a deck that strikes me as being fundamentally one of the best decks in the game right now? Not really, but again, let's come back to kind of the slowing of the game down and the real compression of early game by Badoo existing. And sure, it doesn't really seem like a stretch that a deck that plays 4 Research 4 Iono and a superior draw engine in the End Zoroark EX that it could, climb out of those early holes that, opponents might present with their Badoo to be able to control a game. So I don't think that this deck, like, without Badoo is particularly successful. Like we didn't really see that, when it was first released, but as this meta has shifted, it's, certainly a deck that is better poised now than it maybe was in prior iterations of our format.
Yeah, nuanced take, just not taking any sides, really.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I kind of got done with that, and I'm like, well, what did I really say there?
Yeah,
and
not
the answer
taking a
is,
stand.
yeah, the answer is like, well, would I play it? No, I would not. But,
Okay, sure.
Again, and I don't know too much
Here's
about the
a
deck. I
question.
also don't know too much about the deck, right? In my defense.
Here's a question. Maybe you know better than me. I'm looking at Fabian's list. Like, what is this Hoopa for? Is that for Iron Hands or something?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to reach out to Fabian here because he did play it to a top 16. Yeah, I mean, you got to be looking at that as...
You got to energy switch onto that thing.
I know. I know. It's got to be... Yeah, it's got to be for the Iron Hands, but that seems like such a clunky answer. I just don't know that you have a better answer.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe you don't, but I don't know. It's just, that's crazy. That's crazy. You gotta either attach to it twice or use your one energy switch and a PP.
Yeah, it's a card, all right. That's a card of all time.
Just play the 4 Arvin, I guess. So Fabian does.
Yeah.
I think there's a seniors list as well that was like even crazier. Hold on. We have the technology for this. So the seniors list played a Bombardier EX with the fast carrier one that can like fill your bench. It played a Klefki in there. He also played the Hoopa.
Oh my gosh.
And like a 2/2 Darmanitan. 2/2 Darmanitan is crazy to me.
Dude. Yeah, the 2/2 doesn't make any sense. You need to be playing 3/2.
Yeah, like what if your Darmy boys just get slaughtered?
Yeah, exactly. Spawn camped was, I think, a term that I heard used on various streams. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of like the big selling point, right? The Darmanitan is like the crazy attack, right? You want to be using this practically every turn until
as frequently as you can, for sure.
Until you can get like one shots or favorable math with the Reshiram. That just seems like the attack to go to. So I do like the Power Glass. Certainly there are things about this deck that I really like, but is it a product of the format that it's in? I think so. Like, just
you've been a Power Glass believer since day one.
Oh yeah, Power Glass is so cool.
It is very cool. I did like watching Harvey on stream too, and he had like the Power Glass. He would like discard the energy and like loop it back over. That was fun. So.
Yeah, really cool stuff. And I mean, it still shows that there's room for brewing, right? There's room for
cooking to be had. There's cooking to be had
for cooking. Yeah, absolutely. But
I mean, I want to talk about cooking, man. There was the Monkey Dory Frost last deck made top 8.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, I really don't. But
okay, fair enough.
Funny deck though.
Well, good. All right. So what do you think you'd play? You're going to be the sole representative from the cast going to Milwaukee. That's the penultimate North American regional. Where do you stand with your deck choice? I know we talked a little bit before. You are not you haven't put too much time into preparing, which you're busy. I get it, and this is kind of a local regional to you, so the incentive to
the stakes are a little lower.
The stakes are a little lower. The incentive to like play a lot of rounds is not necessarily there unless, obviously you're just crushing it. But where are you at kind of with your deck choice for Milwaukee?
Yeah, I was expecting to say like a slow Dragapult is like my initial instinct. Mm-hmm. I would love to net check Pedro, honestly. Play those crazy supporter lineup. That just sounds awesome. And the reason I say that is, I was watching Andrew's Lost Thunder stream this past weekend, and I was reminiscing. To be honest, I'm not a huge Lost Thunder format fan.
Me neither.
But it was so awesome to see a Zorak mirror in the finals. And I was texting Natalie. I was like, "Oh, the format's redeemed. There's Zorak mirror in the finals. It's all good now. Like all the problems with the format are washed away to me."
Mm-hmm.
Because I love Zorak. Particularly, I love Zorak Decidueye. And I talked about this a handful of weeks ago when we were talking about if we made our own trainers Pokemon, what they would look like.
Yeah.
And I feel like a slow Dragapult has kind of that vibe where you're drawing a lot of cards with your Dracloaks, and you have damage spreading ability with Dragapult. And I don't know, just like I was feeling that kind of watching the finals too, in Sevilla. So that's what my instinct tells me is what I'm most interested in playing is a slow Dragapult. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was prepared to say as my final answer for this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have a strong feeling that Jesse's going to push hard for Joltik Box, and I'm just pretty sure that's what he's going to play at this point. So maybe he can sell me on it too. And now that we've talked about it more here in the cast, it's interesting. It sounds fun.
Yeah.
I think I'd have a lot of fun playing it, which is
yeah. Well, and that's half of it too, right? It's like you're not. There's no Worlds invite on the line, right? Obviously, you're going to try your hardest in the games that you're playing, but
there is a Worlds invite on the line, dude. There is.
Okay, you're right. For the winner. Not that I don't doubt you, Riley. I just, come on.
The odds aren't like technically just by the numbers game of it all. Like the odds aren't there.
Well, although I don't think Milwaukee sold out, so it might be one of the more reasonable regionals this year.
Yeah,
probably under that 2,000 player.
Might be only 1,800 players there.
So Joltik Box is certainly a deck that is very interesting, right? It's very appealing in terms of the fun factor. I think Iron Hands, anytime I get a chance to use that card, I'm going to be excited about it. So, and you get to play a little 30 HP enabler.
Yeah,
I think that's really fun.
Dude, yeah, little dude.
Little guys are fun.
Yeah, I do love little guys. So it's probably between those two for me. I just don't think I'm smart enough to play Gardevoir. Gardevoir is like, I really enjoy. Not to go on another thing, but if TCG Live wasn't so miserable to play Gardevoir in particular, I would play Gardevoir all the time. But
TCG Live really nerfed Gardevoir hard, didn't it?
Yeah, like. If I had a friend that I'd play paper with, I'd be grinding the Gardevoir.
You'd be slamming Gardevoir down, yeah.
I cannot stand using Psychic Embrace online. It infuriates me. So, and I feel like Gardevoir is a deck that like you definitely want the reps on.
Yeah,
Anyway, what would you play, JW?
I would probably play Gardevoir because I've played Gardevoir a couple of times. Played it at NAIC a couple years ago. Played it at Worlds.
It is very different now.
I know. I'm just saying. Like I've played it like once every iteration, right? I played it at Worlds in 2024, and so I feel like I need to like play it when it's the best deck. I've always kind of played it. At Worlds, it wasn't really the greatest choice. We didn't have what I would consider like the best list at NAIC. It was fine, but 2 years ago that wasn't really like the best list for Gardevoir. I think that punished me in particular in some of the matches that I had. So like I would frankly net deck the winning Gardevoir list and maybe change one. Maybe change.
I mean,
one card.
I'm open to that too. To be fair.
Yeah.
And I trust that I could navigate. I have played my share of Gardevoir. I feel like I could navigate it.
But if you have 0 games with new Gardevoir, like that just seems like
it's not 0. Every time I play it just infuriates me, and I get really tired really fast.
Yeah,
that's playing it online.
That's super fair.
But I have like a history of Gardevoir as well on paper. Not with this specific iteration, but I played with like Monkey Dory Gardevoir variants.
Yeah.
And I fishbowled a lot of Gardevoir actually with Andrew when I visited him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I think the deck just gives you the most outplay potential of any deck out there. I also really just am biased towards Goldango. I had a lot of fun playing Goldango in Atlanta. Felt like that was a really strong choice. And, I felt like my matchups, reflected it being a good choice other than the numerous Dragapult that I just took L's to for no reason.
But Dragapult is the most popular deck.
I know, but I kind of undershot Dragapult, right? Like it was just like I was getting dead hands against Badoo, right? And obviously that's the nature of Dragapult. They're going to play into that, but it was just like it was not the experience that I was having in testing or on the ladder, so it felt bad.
I don't know, man. The Goldango matchups just don't look like they're there. I'm pulling up the stat. I'm on Limitless Labs, dude. I'm auditing right now.
And that's why I'm saying, like, Goldango it's good. I still think it's a fine choice. If you've been prepping your tournament run in Milwaukee with Goldango, like I really don't see an issue there. I think it's a deck that is worthy of being played. You certainly have. You have matchups, I think, out there, right? Like you have strong matchups, but then you worry a little bit, with I would say like the competent Gardevoir players, the competent Dragapult players, and some of these up and comers are a little bit scary to kind of the very straightforward nature of decks that Goldango wants to go against. So
final question on Goldango then.
Yeah.
Do you like it best with Scizor, Dusknoir, or sorry, not Dusknoir, Dragapult, or Dudunsparce?
Yeah, well, I think it's Dudunsparce still, like, or straight. I don't love the Dragapult line, and the reason being, the Dracloaks, right, are supposed to.
And when you say straight, you still play like a 1/1 Scizor?
No, I really don't like Scizor at all. I think Scizor is kind of a waste of. It's a waste of space in my opinion, but just have more gust.
The Ceruledge.
Yeah, the Ceruledge is cool. Ceruledge is cute, but I think the straight, like, no frills, like the top 16 list from Atlanta, or Dudunsparce. I think for supplemental draw, I think Dudunsparce frankly is better. For the reason that
Dudunsparce has the worst win rate of all.
I know. I don't quite understand, but I think it's due to the fact that the Dragapult Dusknoir players, like all the good players in the Mexican regional, played Dragapult Goldango. The reason that I don't like Dracloak versus Dudunsparce is that the problem with Goldango is generally not your early and mid game draw, which is where you get benefit from Dracloak. It's generally your late game draw, right? Or post stamp, post late game Iono draw. You need to be able to get out of that situation. And so for those situations,
explosive enough.
Yeah, Dracloak, I mean, you're seeing 2 cards, you only get to keep 1. I really think you need to just be drawing into resources, right? Because in those late game situations, seeing 2 cards and picking the better one is usually not enough because you're trying to string together in most matchups, right? Like Dragapult matchup or Gardevoir matchup where they're pushing up a big EX at the end of the game. You're usually trying to find multiple superior energy retrievals. So not only do you need to find those cards, you need to have other cards in your hand to discard to enable those cards to be played. So that's kind of where I plant my flag as a Dudunsparce enjoyer. That to me seems like I understand other thought processes, but from my perspective with Goldango, the late game is really the problem with the deck, and you need to be able to draw out of those late game Iono, sometimes Badoo turns, those Iono or reset stamp turns, and that's where I think Dudunsparce pulls ahead for me.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I'm happy to be wrong on that one. I mean, it's really not a big deal there. But
as long as there's coin bonuses to be had, you're happy.
I'm happy. Yeah, Goldango. You'll always have a special place in my heart.
Well, there you have it, folks. JW, big coin enjoyer, as we already knew, of course. JW, fan of coin bonus.
So true.
His whole dang life, man.
That's
Remember
right.
that NAIC stream game against Maridon? Who could forget?
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you so much, folks, for listening this week. Hopefully you found it insightful, or at least hopefully now your ears are perked to Sleevegate and the conspiracy that underlies this entire hobby. If you are interested in getting... You have something to say, Gina?
No, I was gonna agree, man. It's bigger than we think.
Okay. Yeah, this is deep, folks. This is deep. If you're interested in getting engaged in the tag team ecosystem, you can find us over on x.com, formerly known as Twitter, or you can find me at SmouthRiles, JW at RealJohnWalter, and the podcast at Tag Team Pokemon. You can also find us, of course, on any of your favorite podcasting platforms where we'd really love a rate and review, regardless of what your opinion is. Your feedback matters. And on YouTube as well. So if you're looking for an audio-visual experience here, we got you. We got you covered there on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you all so much
Oh.
for listening.
Oh, wait.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you guys all so much for listening. Really appreciate the support. It was awesome to talk to people in Atlanta, and I'm sure Riley, you'll be approached here in Milwaukee. So just can't thank you guys enough for the support at the tournaments.
Absolutely. Yeah, you all are seriously like the coolest fans, for real. It's so awesome. So I do feel empowered to come say hi. We really enjoy getting to meet you. And I think that carries us through, JW. What do you think?
I think that was a good app, Riley.
All right, good up, folks. All right, well, we will catch you all next time, where we'll talk about my spectacular run or spectacular failure, who's to say, here at Milwaukee. See you all around.